Hey guys, what's up? It's been a minute. So for this video, I'm going to be going over all of the issues with stretched ears. So these are just some problems that you can run into with having stretched ears. So one of the issues is blowouts, and pretty much what that is whenever the inside of the lobe gets pushed to the outside of it. And this pretty much comes from stretching too soon or too fast. So when you go to stretch, if you have any stinging or any uncomfortable sensations whenever you're stretching, that's usually a sign that it's too soon to stretch. What was I going to say? So pretty much with blowouts, they can be avoided as long as you stretch whenever you're supposed to. Usually people say to wait a month in between stretches, that way you're not stretching too fast. And another good way to tell whenever it's time to stretch is if you have any excess gap. So like if you pull your jewelry down and if you see a gap right here, that little space between the tunnel and the skin, if you see a gap right there, then usually that means you're good to stretch because you have excess room, and that means your lobes are ready to be stretched. I'm at a 2 right now, a 2 gauge. I don't know what that is in millimeters, but I am at a 2 gauge. Let me see real quick. So a 2 gauge is a 6 millimeter. So this is the size that I'm at right now. And I've stretched my ears a few times, reaching goal size on numerous occasions. This is I think my 4th time stretching my ears up trying to reach goal size. So as long as you wait at least a month in between each stretch, you should be fine. Sometimes I've had to wait at least 2 to 3 months in between stretches just to avoid blowouts and tears and all that stuff. But yeah, as long as you wait as long as you need, you can pretty much avoid blowouts. And blowouts are, I would say, semi-permanent, depending on how bad the blowout is. If you have a lot of excess skin, then, excuse me, if you have a lot of excess skin, then that pretty much means it might not be reversible. But what some people do to try and reverse blowout is they'll either downsize or they'll completely take all of the jewelry out. And then they'll massage it with some kind of oil or like jojoba butter or something like that. And I do have a lot of people supporting me, so that's really nice of them. But back to the video. But yeah, it's good to have people's support and stuff, you know? But anyway, yeah, sometimes it's reversible, sometimes it's not. It just depends on how bad the blowout is. But you're going to want to wait for your ears to fully heal before you stretch back up. And honestly, to be completely transparent, that's one of the things that pisses me off about people who get blowouts. It's like, dude, if you just wait the right amount of time, you can completely avoid getting a blowout. I've never had a blowout for that reason. And it's like, I know you want to reach your goal size really soon, but it's not worth it. It's really not. Because then you have this extra tissue and this extra problem to deal with. So that's why it's important to take your time and really think about it and not stretch up too fast. And then for the next issue that's kind of common with stretched ears is tears. So you can also get tears in your ear from stretching too fast. And what this is it's pretty much when the tissue breaks because it's under too much pressure with the jewelry being put in and stuff like that. And the best way to heal a tear is to take the jewelry out and let it heal back up. And then you can finally restart your stretching journey. And what I mean by that is it's not good to just jump sizes. If you have to completely restart your stretching journey all the way back from the very beginning, then that's just something you're going to have to do. It's not worth it to risk damaging your body in order to stretch your ears. So that's why it's important to take your time with this sort of body modification, and stuff like this can be permanent. So it's important to take that into consideration. Excuse me. Another issue that you can run into with having stretched ears is when the lobe is a thin spot. So what this is pretty much when the lobe doesn't have enough tissue going around the piercing. So like for instance, my lobes weren't pierced crooked, so it's not a good example, but it's pretty much when you have like a thin spot on your ear and it looks like the jewelry is on the edge of the lobe when really it should be more centered. This can happen from when you initially get your ears pierced, if they're pierced crooked, and if they're pierced, in the wrong placement. So it can cause thinning spots to where you can't go up as big as you want to, or whatever, depending on your goal size. So pretty much what that the only issue with that is like if you go too thin, you can get to a certain point to where your ears can tear. And what I mean by that is like the skin just completely cuts in half and it rips. That's another type or another version of a tear in the earlobe. And that's pretty much one of the ways that you can have a tear in your ear. It's when the lobe completely splits in half. And that pretty much makes it to where you can't stretch your ears at all because there's a tear and there's not enough room, there's not enough lobe to work with. And then another issue you can run into with having stretched lobes is ear cheese. And what that is it's pretty much a buildup of dead skin cells, bacteria, and oils that are just sitting within that piercing site. And it causes like a sort of funky smell. And the best way to avoid that is to just wash them every day or every other day. It can also be kind of itchy when you get to a certain point with that if you've had it for too long. So what happens is like after having all that gunk just sit on your ear or in your earlobes for so long, it can cause a sort of itchy sensation. So that's why it's best to just clean them every day or every other day. And really with that, the best thing to keep in mind is it's easier to build habits than to break habits, I would say. But so if you get into the habit of washing your ears at least every other day, then it's avoidable to avoid ear cheese, and then that way you won't have to worry about it. Okay, so on to the next issue is pretty much wet ear. So with wet ear, it's when piercing site holds the shape of whatever jewelry you're wearing. So if you're wearing tunnels, it'll hold the shape of the tunnel, and it looks really like a straight shot tube through. And it'll also have sort of like a soggy texture to it, and it will have sort of a clearish sort of secretion or liquid that comes through. So one second. Also, whenever you get wet ear, it can also be kind of irritated and itchy. And it can also come from wearing the jewelry too long without washing it in between. So you're going to want to make sure you take them out and wash them regularly, at least every other day. And when you get wet ear, the best way to resolve the issue is to take it out, let it heal, and then slowly re-stretch back up. And then, so on to the next issue with stretch ears is sore spots. So what this can look like is when the skin has a sore spot on the inside of the piercing hole. And what this does is it can also have crusties, or it can just look like, you know how when a wound is just new and it can look sort of shiny and have like liquids coming out of it, kind of like when you scrape your knee. It's similar to that, but it'll also have clear crusties. So for that, you're going to want to take them out and heal them, and then slowly re-stretch back to goal size. And that can also be avoided by washing your ears regularly. So on to the last issues that you can have with stretched ears is infection. So infection looks very similar to wet ear and sore spots. And the only difference between wet ear, sore spots, and infections is infections have green to yellowish pus, and wet ear and sore spots have clear wet ear and sore spots have clear secretion. Sorry, I can't freaking talk right now. Also with infections is it can be swollen. It can be swollen and it can be itchy. So you're going to want to make sure when you get an infection from the piercing hole is you're going to want to make sure you take them out and clean them, and then wait until the infection goes away before you size back up. So that's the difference between wet ear, sore spots, and infections. Also with wet ear is it holds the shape of the tunnel. So it looks like a straight tube. There's no soft, round, fluffy, marshmallowy looking ends. So that's pretty much it. That's all of the issues that I've ever heard of as far as what you can run into with having stretched ears. And what it really boils down to is hygiene and making sure you don't stretch too fast. All of these issues can be avoided by doing that, okay? So don't freaking worry about it if you're sitting there trying to reach your goal size. Just wait a minute, be patient, and eventually you'll get to your goal size. And in the end, it'll be so much more worth it than if you're trying to rush. So pretty much as long as you're taking your time when you're stretching, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Now personally, I've stretched my ears reaching goal size on 3 separate occasions. This will be my 4th time starting my ear stretching journey. So that's why my ears are sizing up so fast. Because I know I was going to wait a month between posting videos, but I can't because my tunnels keep falling out, so I just knew I was ready to stretch up. But, so what I've had with my stretched ears out of the, like, what? I'm trying to count how long I've been stretching my ears. I've been stretching my ears since middle school. So, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. I don't know. I would say I've been stretching my ears for about 7 to 8 to 9 years by now. And of course, at certain points, I've reached my goal size, so I just stayed at that size. It does take a very long time, but it's so much more worth it in the end instead of having to risk a blowout or something like that. But anyway, I've personally had tears in my ears, I've had infections in my ears, I've had sore spots in my ears, I've had ear cheese before, but as long as you're taking them out, letting them heal, and then slowly re-stretching, then you should be good. But that's pretty much all I have for this video. Those are pretty much common issues you can get with having stretched ears. So like I said before, as long as you're cleaning them regularly and not stretching too fast, you should be good to, you know, stretch your ears properly. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.